Wednesday, November 15th, 2023. This is Dennis and the Doc. This is our game recap from yesterday's victory. Creighton defeats Iowa. What was the final, 92-84?
Sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, let's go with that.
I asked for an 8-point victory, and I got an 8-point victory.
I was going to say, we got a little segment where we'll go through what we got right and what we got wrong from yesterday's preview. But just general thoughts and feelings. Mr. Dennis, how are you feeling today after the win?
Feel pretty, indifferent, I guess. Kind of what I expected. I thought we'd win by 8. Thought there'd be a lot of points. Just kind of you did what you were supposed to do. No more, no less. Which I guess last year's team a few times didn't do what they were supposed to do. So maybe we shouldn't take that for granted.
Yeah, and to preview later on, we got a lot right on our preview yesterday. So I think we do both kind of agree that it was sort of a business as expected scenario. There were certainly moments where I was very impressed and other moments where I'm like, okay, we have identified something we need to work on. Just generally across the board yesterday, in a pretty good slate of college basketball, I would say mostly lived up to expectations. You had a good finish in Kentucky, Kansas, Marquette, Illinois. Duke handled Michigan State about how we would expect they would have, but otherwise some pretty decent games on last night, and I think we were also kind of right on the money on the way most of them went.
Yeah, I was a little surprised Providence handled Wisconsin as much as they did.
Yeah.
But if you actually watch that game, and maybe this is me refusing to accept I was wrong in a couple scenarios, but if they were going to replay that game again tomorrow and I could take Wisconsin getting 5, I would take Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin missed a ton of bunnies, ton of open threes. Providence shot out of their mind in the first half. That was really the only result that surprised me.
We had, in the unfortunate territory of results, we had Syracuse battling back from down
24.
20, yeah, I was going to say it was at least 16 in the second half to beat Colgate. Dr. Chim's picks did pretty well yesterday. So the only incorrect one I had was Kansas -6, and they won by 5.
Okay.
Otherwise, I had Duke 3.5, Marquette 1.5, A&M 5.5. They beat SMU by 13. Bama -19 against South Alabama. They won by a cool 56. So something to keep an eye on there. Jays fans down the road. So we got Iowa, who was at the time the number 3 ranked offense. Alabama is number 2, and they'll be coming to the building in about a month, actually a month from tomorrow.
Yeah.
Also had Colorado State at Northern Colorado getting 10.5. They won by 19. And Baylor -24 against the Kangaroos of UMKC. They won by 38. So, what was that, 6 for 7 day for Dr. Chim for never really betting college basketball?
Yeah.
Blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
Yeah, I don't remember everything I had. I had Milwaukee. They did not.
That did not work.
I leaned Milwaukee. They got covered. I leaned Duke. They did. Bellarmine somehow didn't. They were winning most of that game.
Yeah, they got closed on late.
And then, my best bet was Iowa, which hit. And then I didn't bet this, but Numbnuts Jared Haas losing by 12 to Santa Clara. Get out.
Yeah.
Get out of a job.
Well, and we didn't even talk about it yesterday because I didn't know they were out, but USC had a couple players injured and dropped to UC Irvine because that is not a bad squad they've got down there.
Yeah. Had I known that earlier, I would have...
Yeah. But all in all, a good day for the Big East. Back to a 3-2 lead in the Gavitt games. A sweep, including one road contest, Marquette defeating Illinois on their home floor. Kolek with a banged-up ankle put up, I think, 26.
I think it was 24, 6, and 8,
yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, he looked every bit as good as he was at the tail end of last year, which is a scary thought. But at the end of the day, we know what we're going to go up against in that Marquette team. We know they're good. That's not surprising.
Yeah. I bought Marquette stock kind of literally in the pool and picked them to win it, and
That's right,
don't feel any worse about that for sure.
Yep. So we'll go into we did a pretty comprehensive preview that's up on our channel, and I'm gonna be honest, like, again, we were pretty close to what actually happened in the game. So we'll go through, we'll do a little where Dennis and the Doc were wrong, where Dennis and the Doc were right. So I will fully admit I was completely wrong. I thought it would be a weird crowd. I thought it would be a lot more Iowa than it was. I said 20%. It was probably closer to 10.
Yeah.
And the crowd was pretty good.
Yeah, it was a good crowd.
Like it wasn't that like upper echelon of CHI crowds, but for a Tuesday night in November against a non-ranked opponent, that was probably about as good as you can ask for.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I think I gave him a B in my official grade because those last 6 minutes were pretty rough.
Yeah, is the 10 minutes of sleep you gained really that big of a fucking deal?
Right, like you gotta leave. There were people leaving with like 24 seconds in the game, or whenever
there
it was 5 points.
Yeah, we got fouled with like 30 seconds left, up 5.
Yeah.
In a 1-and-1, and people were leaving.
Right, like have you never watched a college basketball game?
And Iowa came back from down like 13 with a minute left last year.
Yeah, and that's not even like I'm getting way ahead of the track. That's like you're beating like 200 people out of the state. At that point, it's 11:30. Just stick it out.
Yeah.
You know, you're not getting to bed before midnight. But yeah, decent crowd. We were wrong on counting stats for Kalkbrenner being a factor last night.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't kill him to make a free throw.
Yep.
If he goes, I think he's a career like 70% shooter. He goes 5 or 6 for 8 instead of 3 for 8, and suddenly he's got 17, 18 points, and
right.
So it looks a little different, but yeah, little concerning on the offensive end.
Yeah, I'm really not. I mean, he was 5 of 7 from the field, and one of them was a 3. The other one he got hacked on.
Yeah.
So
did we really need that shot?
No, we didn't. What is he? He's 1 for 4 on the season now, I think.
So.
I'm
2 misses for that shot.
I mean, we'll get to it at the end because I think there's concern about 2 guys right now, and I think we agree on one of them. Maybe we disagree a little bit on that. The only other place where I think we were wrong, I was on Shireman double watch, and apparently I was on the wrong guy for that.
Yeah.
Only recorded 4 boards, which is a little surprising. But when you see Trey in there with 11, it starts to make a little more sense.
Yeah. We'll say again, Kalkbrenner 1 rebound until like 7 minutes left.
Yep.
Then he got 3 in pretty quick succession.
Well, and the thing is, too, it's kind of hard to justify because they weren't pulling him out as much as you thought they might, right?
I kind of did.
Well, he's taking 15-footers. Like, at the end of the day, if Kalkbrenner's not guarding him, he's 10 feet from the basket, and if you're 7 feet tall, you should be grabbing more than 1 rebound.
Yeah.
I fully expected they were going to play him in top of the key pick and roll, but it was more elbow stuff, and I don't know, he could have stuck his nose in there more often, I think. Part of it, I think, is his natural reluctancy to foul or be in fouling situations, but he also didn't do a great job of that last night either. So
no, it was not one of his better games by any stretch.
No, and that's like I got in an argument with somebody last night who was like, oh, he's showing signs of regression. I'm like, no, this was a bad game. You know, like I'm not going to say signs of regression until it's 2 or 3 in a row.
Yeah.
He's played well this season. His stats just aren't where they have to be because they haven't had to be. This was the first game where you could argue that we needed more from him and we didn't get it. So if it happens again, like, I'll reconsider, but he is one of the most important players in college basketball for the team, and I'm not going to, like, discount that because he got 13 points against Iowa.
Yeah.
But as for the where we were right, we both did agree 12.5 was way too much for a line, at least. We both took the over. I had us by 7, you had us by 8, so yeah, we're right in the ballpark there. Not too much to say. I think we had a good idea for how the flow of the game was going to go. You could say we probably should have put them away and covered, but it's not easy, right? Like the game's not over. It's a game of runs. We had our runs. They had one to close it down, so it happens. I mean, I don't know if you saw it. We didn't make a basket from...
I didn't notice, but I got told that,
Yeah, from like 6 minutes until 30 seconds or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, you do that and you still win by 8. Like, that tells you probably should have covered, you know.
Yeah, it's also a product of, like, run your fucking offense.
Yeah, we changed it. It was a little too much dribbling. It was a little too much, like, action, you know, like top of the key, like passes that didn't really end up leading to a play. And maybe some of that is they switched well or did something well, but it's, you know, I don't think so. Another place we were right, I said Iowa wouldn't fear Kalk because they won't go inside. And that's we'll call that a half-truth because they didn't go inside, but they certainly went at him. They actually did end up targeting him a little bit more than I thought, recognizing that we were going to play drop coverage.
Yeah.
But instead of having R.J. Cole, Jared Bynum take those mid-range twos, they let a 1950s forward automatic from 15 feet take them. And my God, he made, I think somebody said from the elbow he was 85%.
Yeah, I mean, the free throw line jumper, when he made a couple, you're like, all right, live with those, I guess.
Right.
Bad analytical shot. And then as he made 7 straight to start the game, you're like, all right, I guess we can't live with them.
Well, but they did. I mean, they did. They
adjusted a bit.
Yeah, and we'll get into that because, like, that's, I think, one of the first big things I want to talk about from this game is not only the shot quality decisions that we made and kind of allowing that, and then Greg, what he did to adjust, because I think he did a couple of subtle things that made a lot of difference.
Mm-hmm.
You were on Fred King could have a really nice game, except your idea of a nice game was 10 minutes, 8 points, and 6 rebounds.
It's pretty close.
That's 12 minutes, 12 points, 5 boards. So yeah, you're right there.
Close.
But I mean, I think you'd say the impact was substantial.
Yeah.
Was more than I think anyone would predict.
Yeah.
Not surprising, I think, given the last 2 games.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned this on the preseason where he's someone who only started playing basketball a few years ago, and he's a guy you can see having a rapid ascension and by year 3 turning into a all-conference type of player as he gets more comfortable just playing basketball. He's obviously a great athlete and I think has good instincts. He's the opposite of Kalkbrenner in that he is aggressive, he is willing to be physical, and go in there and get rebounds and maybe use a foul getting a rebound. But yeah, he had a great game, and I don't know if you win without him.
Yeah. I had Kalk will score multiple baskets on transition rim runs. I think that's a pretty safe call most games, especially against a team that's going to run and gun on you. I also had I don't see Kalk recording a lot of boards. Indeed, he didn't. It was for slightly different reasons than we predicted, but only 4 rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
I got close on this one. I was a little worried. I had the could go down 25-16 early and have to dig ourselves out. We got to 23-16.
Yeah.
So in the ballpark there. And then the one I think we got to be the most proud of coming into today, we need a second half kill if we're going to put it away. And sure enough, right out the chute, 10-2 run followed by an 8-2 run.
Yeah.
And yeah, that should have put the game away.
Yeah.
And you're looking up and it was what, like 61-49 in the blink of an eye in the second half. Like, yeah, we're just going to do that to teams this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like Marquette last year. Like every game they'll go on one run where they're going to hit a couple threes, get a block, get a transition layup.
What I'm liking so far, and it's way too early to say this for sure, the team is reminding me of some of the best qualities of each of our past good teams. What I mean by that, like, we've got the shooters off the bench depth, like the late Doug year teams, right? Like you got a Rogge lineup with Trout.
Mm-hmm.
You have substance there. It reminds me of the runs that the 2019-20 team went on in like those February. I remember the one against DePaul stands out where I think it was like a 19-0 run, and it was absolutely unstoppable. And they did that for 3 or 4 games in a row where they just bury you right at the start of the second half.
Yeah.
And then it is some of that like 2020-2021 team versatility, everyone can kill you. It could be somebody different every day, and there's going to be times where somebody just doesn't miss, right? So I'm enjoying watching that. I think we've got a lot of ways to beat teams. We don't have to rely on all 5 of the starters gelling, being in rhythm, being in form. I don't know. I think there was, again, a lot to be mostly indifferent about from last night's game. There was also a lot to like.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So we go to the box score, and it's an interesting one, right? You start with Ashworth, played 22 minutes, 0 points on 0 of 3 shooting from 3. Did log 4 rebounds and 3 assists against 1 turnover. We'll ask the question now that I think we're gonna lead this podcast with for this particular episode. Time to panic?
No, not time to panic yet. I don't know. I know, like, you never thought he was gonna be good defensively, and being in the stadium, I guess it's a little tough to say, like, was he bad? But, like, the defensive system, I think, is built on funneling guys to drop, or funneling guys to Kalkbrenner, play the drop, and let them take mid-range jumpers. Like, I know if you look on Ken Palm's Creighton page, I want to say if you look at the distribution of points that we've given up, I think we have something like the 6th lowest in 3-pointers. Here, I should have it. We rank I'll find it later. Oh, here, 6. So we give up the 323rd most amount of percent of points on 3-pointers and 336th on free throws, and the 6th most on 2s. Yeah. So the defense is clearly predicated on take away the 3-point line, take away the free throw line, which I think is a pretty smart analytical defense.
Yeah, I think it's rooted in good theory.
Yeah, and so when you're playing the drop, it's funnel your guy to Kalkbrenner and concede the 17-foot jump shot. When you look at the box score for last night, the difference in the game is we had 10 threes, they had 6. They took, and we had 10 more free throws than they did.
Yeah.
They took 21 more 2s, but the difference is it's worth 66% of a 3.
Right.
And so we were willing to let Cricky shoot 18 mid-range jump shots, shoot what I have to imagine is a pretty damn good game for him, go 11 of 18, and it still doesn't kill you.
Right.
And so...
Well, because, I mean, you wonder, like, how much better could somebody do than that?
Yeah.
And if that was as good as it's going to get and it still doesn't beat you,
yeah,
then you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. And of those 7 misses, 6 of those were probably contested. Like, he maybe missed 1 open shot.
Yeah.
Open shots, he probably was 11 of 12.
Yeah.
And so I think part of Ashworth getting beat off the dribble is a little bit by design. I think that's what he's supposed to do, is like channel him to Kalkbrenner. If they're going to pop, fine.
Yeah.
Like, then you give back for that. And they just happen to be killing you there. Offensively, yeah, like you want to see him knock down a shot. But I will say the one thing, and again, if you want to say this is playing favorites, fine, because it probably is. But if Ryan Demhart has a 0-point game, he probably was a net negative in other places. A Ryan Demhart 0-point game probably comes with 5 turnovers, and you say he played awful.
Yeah.
Like, I still don't say Ashworth played terribly offensively. It's not like he missed every shot. He just didn't really have a ton of open looks, and he didn't force many outside of that one heat check like 2 minutes in. But he still came away with 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover, and the turnover I'm not sure was his fault. I still wouldn't say he played awful offensively.
He was catching a lot of skip passes, too.
Yeah.
Like, he's jumping for every pass he caught,
yeah.
Which is partially because I think that's the way Iowa is designed. Is like, hey, if we get a steal, if we get a tipped pass, then great. If not, fine.
Yeah.
So they were forcing to go over length a little bit. So he was having a little trouble with that. Yeah, again, his passing was good. His spacing is good. Generally in the right position defensively. Like, he got beat on a couple of those early pick and rolls, but I think that was more the offense learning what Cricky was going to do. Because I guess you never really know until you know. But yeah, not the worst performance. Like, how often does a 40% shooter shoot 0 for 3? Not that often, but often enough where it's going to happen every now and then. So, and on the subject of Cricky too, so that was something I wanted to talk about, was Greg's kind of mini defensive adjustments. It was a lot of get hands around him at the catch.
Yeah.
It was a lot of mini hedge, like kind of sag off a defender and at least be close to him so he can't catch and shoot right away.
Yeah, they would use the other guard not in the pick and roll, and it was Ashworth a lot to dig in, put a hand in, and disrupt the rhythm where it wasn't a pure catch and shoot, and it gave Kalkbrenner an extra half second to get out another step and disrupt it. And I think that did make an adjustment. To Ashworth's credit, I don't think he's bad defensively for a lack of trying or not knowing how to play defense. He's just
had
probably 5'10", 160-pound white guy.
Yeah.
But I think he did a good job on the hedges of being in the right spot, getting a hand in there. No one's going to say he's a plus defender or a neutral defender. He's a minus on defense.
Yeah.
But he just has to be okay enough.
He has to be a guy where if Bello isn't playing as well as he is today, that you can at least play him down the stretch.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm not going to lie. It worried me that we're already going to that option.
Yeah.
You know, like that's kind of like, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, is he really not going to be on the floor closing games for us? And I start to imagine a very real scenario where that's true, where it regularly will be Trey at the point and Bello at the two closing games for us.
Mm-hmm.
And after what I saw last night, you know, maybe that's not such a problem, but there are going to be games where we're going to miss him.
Yeah, and to be completely fair, it's hard to take Bello off the floor yesterday. He played outstanding.
Yeah.
I think in a world, if it's Bello last year, I think Ashworth probably still plays 30 minutes, but part of it is like Bello just happened to be playing a better game.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think I said that on Twitter last night too. I'm like, I don't know how much of it was for his lack of ability to be in the game, or it was just we had a better option at that moment. Why not go with it?
Mm-hmm.
So I had another subject. The transition defense changed a lot from Iowa first half to second half, and that's when you realize sort of the importance of runs against teams like this, because their whole transition system, and I say like, oh, it's so different. We scored 43 points in the first half. But we made a lot less mistakes, I think, in the second half. We were able to control the pace a little bit more, which sounds like a weird thing to say. But their whole system is predicated on them making shots, right? That's what lets them get back.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it always feels like they're running teams out of gas, and they couldn't do it to us, is because when they're missing their shots and we are running them in transition, they weren't keeping up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those, I remember the guy behind me was asking, like, is Cricky hurt? Because they did not play him from, like, the under 12 to, I think, like, 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
And it seemed weird, but I will give Fran a lot of credit for doing that, as weird as that sounds, because I think that is the reason they were kind of able to hang around in the game.
Yeah, I think he was clearly tired from having to carry them on offense the entire game.
Yeah. When you forget just how good Kalk is at running down the floor.
Yeah.
Like, he could not keep up with that either.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think Iowa's defense was hopeless. Like, it seemed like they made some system choices that probably cost them a couple buckets, but active hands, had a couple of steals. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of get what they're going for. They'll have games where they give up 95 to a team they shouldn't, but...
Yeah, I mean, if you're an Iowa fan, I think you have to come away feeling pretty good about your team. I don't think you're a top 15 team in the country, but I don't see why you're not a 6 seed who doesn't make the Sweet 16 again.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at that and I say, like, almost certainly a tournament team,
Yeah.
right? Like, I can't imagine.
Yeah,
not.
things would have to go wrong.
I will say, like, outside of Cricky, their offense was shaky.
I thought Sanford was a little disappointing.
Yeah, well, he took, like, 2 kind of ridiculous shots in the first half, and then I feel like he either backed off the throttle or just wasn't getting open looks anymore. Not that he was open the first couple of times he shot it.
Yeah.
Perkins, same thing. He kind of quieted down in the second half. Not really anything happening from him. Freeman looked good, back up big off the bench. I think he's a true freshman. And I think what we saw from us is a lot of what we're going to be seeing in February because the 8-man rotation reared its head in earnest yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you have the King will play 10 minutes a game for Kalkbrenner. Miller probably has a 60-40 split with Trout. And then Bello spells the other 3.
Yep. Not a single minute for Lawson, and Doetzler logged 3 seconds.
3 seconds, yeah.
So that surprised me a little bit, but at the same time, it would have been hard to justify doing anything else.
Yeah, there was no reason to go away from Bello where, I mean, Trey was bad in the first half, but you're not going to sit him an extended period of time. And, yeah, no one really didn't deserve to play.
No, and let's just talk about Trey while we're at it. I mean, he played 38 minutes, 23 points on 9 of 19 shooting, 1 of 4 from 3, 4 of 4 at the line, 5 turnovers, 4 of them in the first half, and there was at least 1 that he didn't get credited for.
Yeah, he was bad in the first half, which I know I saw somebody yelling at you for giving him a B, which, like, recency bias. He was bad in the first half.
He was.
He was very good in the second half.
Yeah.
He showed you why you can't go away from him, and he will have bad halves. I thought that was his worst half since probably his freshman year. I thought he was legitimately bad.
Like, he was hurting us in the first half. And there you go. It doesn't mean anything. Like, you play well enough the rest of the game. Great.
I mean, that's what I said at halftime was I think Trey played like shit. I think Kalkbrenner played like shit. You've shot bad. They've shot well, and you're tied.
Yeah.
So you feel fine.
Yeah. Baylor was big in the first half. Yeah. He also he backed off a little bit in the second half, but most of that was just because Trey was taking everything.
Yeah.
And at that point, you kind of have to. Only 4 attempts from 3 from him. He was taking the right shots. He was taking what they gave him, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Got fouled a lot. So 11 boards stands out to me. He was clearly taking advantage of the way they were trying to rotate matchups where he ended up inside a lot. And teams that shoot more from the outside are just going to have more rebounds kick out, right?
Yep.
Like guards are just going to have more opportunities to grab boards.
Yep.
9 assists, mostly a factor of Ashworth not being on the floor. He realized that he was drawing multiple guys by the end of the game, and he found the right places. A couple of nice lob or pass to King. He was working well with him.
I will say that they did let it get physical. He had multiple drives that could have been called for offensive fouls.
Well, they don't call charges anymore.
They don't call that, or they'll call that charge.
Yeah, maybe. Clearly, there's an effort so far where they're just not going to call many early in the season.
Yeah.
Trey, like, he is going to be, because we say all this and he got 23 points. Like, he's just going to get his this year.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing I think you could say for this team is that gives you a floor.
He's player of the year.
If you've got a guy who's just going to go out and he can just will 23 points when he's having a bad night, arguably, that's you just need that sometimes. Talked a little bit about Baylor. He hit some timely threes in the first half to keep us in it. Mason had a largely unremarkable game. 1 of 4 from 3, made 4 free throws, 5 boards. Didn't do anything wrong.
No, I thought he played well. He knows his role. He doesn't give you the ceiling of Kaluma, but the floor is a lot higher, and he doesn't hurt you. Like, he knows what he's out there to do. Yeah. Get rebounds, play hard, make an open 3. That's what he did. Him and Trout both. I mean,
we shot the starting lineup shot poorly from 3. We were 5 of 16, 5 of 21. Like, not good. If it wasn't for the 2 off the bench shooting it, would have been a rough day from 3. So, again, but that's why it's hard to beat this team this year, right? It's not just 2 guys you got to stop; it's 6.
Yeah.
And if Lawson plays, theoretically it's 7. But yeah, Kalk, not his best game. I'm really just not gonna be worried yet. 3 of 8 from the line is the only part I'm actually pissed about.
Yeah.
He was jumping a little more on defense, but I think that was just him being out of his routine. Clearly they were making him uncomfortable. Bello and King, games of their career, probably.
Yeah.
Bello didn't put a foot wrong outside of the layup that he shot off the backboard that he seems to do way too often.
3 feet short.
Yeah. he's hit the side of the backboard on that exact drive like 4 times.
Yeah, that was bad. But we'll cut him slack for that.
Yeah, otherwise could not have played a better game. 3 of 4 from 3, and the one he missed was the hardest look of all of them, I think. So 3 of 3 from the line, 1 of 3 inside looks like, and I guess the fouls go there. 24 minutes. I felt like more, honestly.
About right.
Yeah. 3 boards. Yeah, again, that is, like, I want to say that's what we want from him. No, that's so far above what we even need from him, right? Like,
yeah, he played outstanding, debatably, or like you can give him absolutely a case for game MVP in my eyes.
Yeah, and that's, I think we have the Trey first half a little more in our minds than I think some of the other people who've evaluated the game did. Yeah. Because, like, you saw the national guys who, like, clearly didn't watch much of the game. Like, oh, he's your national player of the year right now. I'm like, okay, he had a really good game, but it was a bad start. His ceiling is still way higher than that. Yeah. Which is crazy to say. And Fred, I mean, God, I love him.
He's going to be a really nice player next year, I think.
I think I've said it on this podcast. Like, I always fall in love with the backup big, but this is a whole new thing this year.
This is gonna be a hot take. I think there are certain matchups he's better.
I don't think that's a hot take at all.
Like, I think if we match up with Arizona and Bello, like, I think Fred King should play 25 minutes.
Okay, I can't get to that.
Do you forget Bello putting up 32 and 26 last year?
I don't. I just, like, at the same time,
Kalkbrenner's, like, one big weakness is, like, a big physical throwback big down low.
Right, but remember, it's about what do we want to let beat us.
It was also 30 and 13, but...
Okay. But like, having Kalk back there restricts what the guards are able to do, right? Like, he can... The times he, like, stepped out last year and guarded, like, Jordan Hawkins on the perimeter just because, right?
Yeah.
Like, you lose that. So now all of a sudden you got Boswell, Love, and Larson, like, cutting on guys. Like, who's going to guard them one-on-one besides Trey? So are we losing other places? You know, I don't think I could ever get around to Kalkbrenner not being on the floor more often.
Bello was 14 of 17 last year in that game.
He had mono.
I'm saying, I think
his nightmare
certain matchups.
Don't get me wrong, that is his nightmare matchup, and I would still say 25-15 in his favor.
See how it goes.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if King keeps playing like this, though, I mean, my God, I just hope he stays around for next year. Like, there's no reason why he won't at this point, because he's going to be the starting center. Yeah. The tough part was getting him to come back for this year. Yeah. And then Trout, a little unheralded, but 2 for 3 from 3. A couple of tough looks, too. Yeah. If that's what he's going to be, if he's going to be a tough look guy where you just kind of need to kick it out to somebody and...
Yeah, I mean, he can't do one thing. The only thing he can do is shoot. Damn, he can shoot it well.
Yeah. Again, like, there were a couple moments on defense, I'm like, oh my God, move your feet. Yeah. But he's a freshman. He's, you forget that because he doesn't look like a freshman, but he'll hopefully either quicken up or smarten up on defense a little to how to move more effectively. Mm-hmm. There's only so much you can do, though. And again, like, he did exactly what you ask of him.
Yeah, don't fuck up and hit your open threes.
Yeah. So I think that's just about all I had. Again, very hard to be anything but positive about this game. Hard to be too positive, though, because they did let off at the end. We did stop running our offense, and you got 0 points from your starting point guard. Like,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, those are not things we're going to celebrate, but it was a great team win.
Yeah, and I will say, I know people are worried about the defense. It only was 1.12 points per possession, which is not good. Like, I think 1 is your target threshold. Yeah. But, like, that's not terrible. It was a very high possession game. That's very different than if you give up, like, giving up 70 to Nebraska with the pace they play at would be worse.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like, trying to find, I don't know. I don't have anything.
We dropped to, I think, 29 in Ken Palm defense. Mm-hmm. And that's probably where we'll be most of the year.
Yeah.
Like again, we need to kind of keep it in perspective that if we're getting upset about a top 30 defense, it's probably not reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
That's where historically you have to be, right? Is top 30 offense, top 30 defense if you're really trying to win something serious.
Yeah.
So the first one won't be a problem. The second one will probably be hanging right around it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm interested. I want to see how we play against Colorado State. I think they're going to present a unique challenge for us.
They'll run good offense. They won't play it. They're a slightly worse version of Iowa. They're not going to play it.
No, I'm not worried about winning the game as much as I am.
Are you really writing off the Ramblers just because they lost to UIC?
Yes, I am. I am going to write them off now, yeah.
Gee, Valentine, you fucking nut.
Yeah, but that game and Alabama, I mean, we basically play three versions of the same team in Iowa, them, and Alabama.
Yeah.
So I kind of don't love that we're not getting a look at, like, Oklahoma State will probably muck it up a little bit.
Nebraska should muck it up.
Yeah, but they're just not good enough. Like, if we, who's a team that you really wish we would have played in non-con, just to at least see what we match up against? Because it was Arkansas for me. It was there. That's a good shout.
I think Wisconsin would be a good one.
Yeah.
Slow it down, those Stephen Cross so fucking soft.
Because Arkansas was that one for me last year, where I'm like, okay, we've got talent. They arguably have more talent. So what does our talent look like against?
I like the Texas Tech matchup last year. Like, they muck it up and play good defense.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good one.
Texas Tech again? I don't know.
Yeah.
With McCasland.
I like the Wisconsin call. I think that's a good one. I think that would test us a little bit. But all right, I mean that's all I had. Try not to go too long on this.
Yeah, there really aren't a ton of physical defenses in the conference.
No.
Like St. John's, depending on how much Pitino coaches them up, but they have absolutely not been a physical defense to start the year.
Yeah.
Marquette, kinda. Nova, not really. UConn, not really. Xavier, no. Butler, haven't watched them yet. So I don't know. I think, we're going to play. I think our defense is going to be tested a lot more than our offense is.
Yeah.
We'll see. Like I said, I'm not over the moon after yesterday. It's not what we talked about, where if we go out in 20 ball and you think, like, we have a top 5 team here. Yeah. But you did what you're supposed to do. I think KenPom had it 8 or 9 going in, so you basically, like, you did what you're supposed to do.
Yep. No, we agreed the spread was too much. I think if you managed your expectations correctly last night, you should be pretty happy with what you saw. Not let off, and you probably win that game by 15, right? Probably. So you got that in
a way. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah. It's a lesson. It really is. The team should have picked something up.
It's a lesson. If you won't learn, no college coach will ever.
No college coach learns it. They all do the same shit.
Maybe next time you'll run down the 55 seconds on the clock with a 30-second shot clock. Maybe.
There's a reason that teams are still running prevent defense when they're up 2 touchdowns. Like they're too stubborn.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're always gonna default, I think, to the thing that won't get you fired.
Yeah.
And it's not always the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this will probably be our last one for a little while.
Yeah,
we're both heading out of town next weekend.
Yeah, maybe we'll find a way to do a virtual one if needed.
Yeah, we'll get more creative as this goes along for sure. But yeah, heading toward Thanksgiving week, feast week, the Ramblers, and probably Colorado State.
Yeah, you gotta win Loyola. That would be a bad loss should you lose it. Colorado State, like I said, they're a worse Iowa. They have a very good offense and they play no defense.
Yep, hoping for 2-0 and then get back here and talk about Oklahoma State after that. Fun stretch of ball coming up. This has been Dr. Chim Richards for Mr. Dennis Thamanos. Thank you for
Pick
listening.
of the day, Coppin State, fade Louisville.
Always fade Louisville. That's our message. Every episode, fade Louisville.